an infinite amount of cash at the Federal Reserve. There is an infinite amount of cash at the Federal Reserve.
Good morning, Bitcoin. Today is Wednesday, July 1st, 2020. My name is Thomas Hunt, and this is the World Crypto Network. The price of Bitcoin is up 0.74% in the last 24 hours, with a last of 9,252, a high of 9,265, and a low of 9,109. That's $1 for 10,807 Satoshis. Volume is very low for a weekday, with only 1,697 Bitcoins changing hands. The market continues to lean long, with 82% heading that direction. Bitcoin dominance is at 65%. And now, a brief reading from the Principia Discordia by Maclean the Younger. A Zen Story by Camden Benares, the Count of Five Headmaster, Camp Meeker Cabal. A serious young man found the conflicts of mid-20th century America confusing. He went to many people seeking a way of resolving within himself the discords that troubled him. But he remained troubled. One night, in a coffee house, a self-ordained Zen master said to him, "Go to the dilapidated mansion you will find at this address which I have written down for you. Do not speak to those who live there. You must remain silent until the moon rises tomorrow night. Go to the large room on the right of the main hallway, sit in the lotus position on top of the rubble in the northeast corner, face the corner, and meditate." He did as the Zen master instructed. His meditation was frequently interrupted by worries. He worried whether or not the rest of the plumbing fixtures would fall from the second-floor bathroom to join the pipes and other trash he was sitting on. He worried how he might know when the moon rose on the next night. He worried about the people who walked through the room, what the people who walked through the room said about him. His worrying and meditation were disturbed when, as if in a test of his faith, hors d'oeuvre fell from the second floor onto him. At that time, two people walked into the room. The first asked the second who the man sitting there was. The second replied, "Some say he is a holy man. Others say he is a shithead." Hearing this, the man was enlightened. A brief reading from the Principia Discordia by Maclean the Younger. And now, the Bitcoin news. But first, happy July 1st. Yes, July 1st is Bobby Bonilla Day. The Mets pay him $1.19 million every year until 2035. What a great contract. What a great deal for Bobby Bonilla. Every year we celebrate one more million for Bobby. He hardly even played on the contract either. Great deal for Bobby. Terrible deal for the Mets. Bitcoin set for 288,000 bull run in 2020. Popular Bitcoin price model says. The latest update of Bitcoin's stock-to-flow price model shows July is beginning exactly as required for a long-term bullish trajectory to continue. They've added a new red dot to the stock-to-flow marker. Look right here, you can see in all of its glory the new red dot. There it is right there. There's one red dot and now another red dot. Whoa. I feel like that solved all my problems. Bitcoin price stalls below 9.2 thousand, but data shows investors are bullish. Bitcoin price has stalled below $9,200, but on-chain data, investor sentiment, and Bitcoin's strong quarterly performance are bullish signals. Bitcoin analyst. Central bank cuts means world has gone Zimbabwe. Sounds kind of fun. Zimbabwe-style mayhem is a possible outcome from a flood of cheap money hitting the global economy, warns Crypto.
There is an infinite amount of cash at the Federal Reserve.
I've heard that's true. Bitcoin supporters are watching almost every central bank in the world as they lower interest rates and the global fiat money supply skyrockets.
There is an infinite amount of cash at the Federal Reserve.
That is a lot of cash. Bitcoin cannot be printed. Largely due to the coronavirus, institutions have slashed rates by as much as 1,700 basis points, with Argentina leading the way. Israel changed the least, with a 15 basis point reduction, while Ukraine, Pakistan, Barbados, and the East Caribbean joined Argentina at the top of the list. Argentina's current central bank interest rate is 38%, the highest of any central bank on the list. Lower rates are designed to incentivize borrowing and spending and go hand in hand with quantitative easing policies.
There is an infinite amount of cash at the Federal Reserve.
Translation, under which the money supply of fiat currencies can increase exponentially. Yes, that's a lot of exponents. Missing from the rankings are countries such as Venezuela, Iran, and Lebanon, where currency meltdowns have become an unavoidable feature of central bank policy. Is it a feature or a bug? Zimbabwe, famous for hyperinflation since the year 2000, is also absent. Perhaps the world really has gone Zimbabwe. An Israeli blockchain startup claims it's created an undo button for Bitcoin transactions. Yes, it really is that funny. The startup claims if you send your money through them, a trusted third party, they could easily undo your Bitcoin transaction just by not sending it. That's right, a third party holds on to your transaction and doesn't send it. That's the same thing as an undo button for Bitcoin, right? No, it's not. It's a third party. Check out the World Crypto Network store at worldcryptonetwork.store or in the links below this video on YouTube. You could get the Treasures Don't Float shirt by Philippe, Bitcoin Not Bombs 2020 Bitcoin Halving Edition by Davi Barker, and the World Crypto Network shirt and mug designed by Crypto Graffiti and original logo by Bruno PT. Check it out at worldcryptonetwork.store. Also, check out the World Crypto Network audio podcast on Spotify, iTunes, and other places where podcasts are heard. I just updated it this morning, so it's rolling out from Spreaker to all of the other podcast services. Check it out, the World Crypto Network, audio-only podcast. Checking in with the price of Bitcoin, it's slightly up in the last 8 minutes or so, with a last of 9,260, a high of 9,268, so close, and a low of 9,109. That's a mere 0.79% in the last 24 hours. Volume is still very low for a Wednesday morning, with 1,720 Bitcoins changing hands. We're keeping an eye on this today. And now, here's the news. I wish it was all about Bobby Bonilla getting $1 million. Wouldn't that be great if that was the biggest story of the day? Yes, Bobby Bonilla got another $1 million. His contract lasts till 2035. I wonder if someday we'll be talking about Bobby Bonilla's ancestors getting $1 million. But alas, we can't just talk about the Mets and the Pirates and Barry Bonds' uncle. We've got to keep moving. Because, as I'm sure you guys know, Kayleigh McEnany announced...
The president does read, and he also consumes intelligence verbally. This president, I'll tell you, is the most informed person on planet Earth. Right. The president does read, and he also consumes intelligence verbally.
Let's one more time.
This president, I'll tell you, is the most informed person on planet Earth. Right.
The most informed person on planet Earth. You kind of overshot the mark there. When you lie, you want to just be kind of casually about it. Like, you don't look naked at all with that brown dress on your skin. You want to lie like that. And that cross in front of your dress isn't at all a signal that you're sending to other people. We got a great side-by-side comparison of Dr. Fauci and Kevin from Home Alone. The United States could have 100,000 cases a day of coronavirus. And if you know anything about viruses and how bad that might get, imagine if every person who had the virus at 100,000 a day infected someone else. Why? That would be 100,000, then 200,000. What if every person who had the virus infected 3 people? Well, that would be 100,000, 400,000. Uh-oh. What if those 400,000, well, just the new 300. The new 300,000, let's say they each infected 3 people. That would be 900,000. Plus the other 400, 1.3 million in 3 days, growing like a virus, straight up diagonally. That's as viral as Facebook. That's as viral as YouTube. Don't get that YouTube virus. It appears that Nevada's COVID-19 numbers have scared off the NHL. Vegas is rumored to be out. Edmonton and Toronto could be in as hub cities, whatever those might be. The chatter was that the NHL could buy out Park MGM. Now hearing it was to be the Mirage. Either way, it's not happening, because in Las Vegas they couldn't wear masks. Yes, the governor feared a rebellion if you make the people take reasonable health measures to combat a virus. Yes, a rebellion if you have reasonable health measures to combat a virus. That's where we are today. Shout out to Seth Meyers. He shared this fantastic tweet, a series of tweets, a thread from Matthew Rosenberg at Ashcan Press. Matthew's got a great story here about Carl Reiner. We're just going to tell it kind of in brief here. He has a Carl Reiner story. He'd share it on the day of his passing. Growing up, his father and his twin brother fell in love with Sid Caesar's Your Show of Shows. It is the show that made his dad fall in love with storytelling and comedy. They worshipped Caesar, along with cast member / writer Carl Reiner. Caesar, Reiner, and the other writers on their show, including Mel Brooks, Neil Simon, Larry Gelbart, and Woody Allen, all made my dad and uncle wanted to be writers, which they both ended up being. Growing up, my dad's choice of dinner on every birthday was beef stroganoff. Why did he eat beef stroganoff on every birthday for his whole life? Because of a joke on Your Show of Shows. When Charlton Heston was a guest on the show, they did a Cold War spy sketch where Reiner was told to go into a restaurant and ask for beef stroganoff. He sits down and the waitress comes over. Reiner says, "I'm here for beef stroganoff." She leaves, and a short while later, Heston walks over to the table and asks Reiner, "Can I help you?" Reiner responds, "I asked for beef stroganoff." And Heston pauses, and then, in his deep voice, deadpans, "I am beef stroganoff." The joke made my dad laugh his whole life. Around 20 years ago, my dad had his yearly birthday call with his brother. They're twins. My dad mentioned having beef stroganoff, and my uncle asked why he always had that on his birthday. Confused, my dad just said, "Because of the sketch." My uncle had no idea what he was talking about. It turned out he remembered the sketch clearly, but was convinced Heston's name on it was Sauerbraten, not beef stroganoff. They ended up arguing about this for years. My dad bought every DVD and VHS of Your Show of Shows he could find. He watched every clip online and every documentary, but there didn't seem to be any surviving tape of the sketch. Jump ahead 10 years and Carl Reiner writes a new book. He announces he'll be signing and giving a talk in New York at the 92nd Street Y. My dad sees this as his chance. He buys tickets as fast as he can. My dad was desperate to ask him about the sketch in person, but knowing that he might not get the chance, he also wrote up a letter to hand to Reiner in case there was no time to ask. When it came time for the signing, my dad waited in line, and when he got in front of Reiner, he told the story of how his whole life he'd loved the show and the sketch and beef stroganoff. But then he got in a fight with his brother. Carl listened. When he got to the part about how they couldn't remember whether it was beef stroganoff or sauerbraten, he asked Carl point blank, "Which was it?" Carl Reiner stared at my dad, laughed, and simply said, "That was a long time ago." My dad thanked him anyway, got his book signed, and then decided to hand him the letter he'd written too, just because he'd said some nice things in it about how much he'd appreciated Reiner's work over the years. Two months later, my dad is out for a bike ride. The phone rings. My mom answers. A man asks to speak to my father. She tells him that he's out. The man says he'll try back another time. She asks who it is, and he says, "Carl Reiner," and hangs up. No number. No caller ID. Obviously, we are all in awe that he called, and we wait for him to call back. And we wait, and we wait. Finally, a week goes by, and the phone rings. My dad answers it excitingly, like he'd answered every call the past week. But this time, it's Carl Reiner again. He says he read the letter my dad gave him at the signing, and he found it so touching that he wanted to share it with the others. He then puts the phone on speaker, and Carl Reiner is having dinner with Mel Brooks and Sid Caesar. They are calling my dad to answer his question about a sketch from 50 years ago. They all make some jokes and then admit that they have no idea whether Charlton Heston was named Beef Stroganoff or Sauerbraten in the sketch. But they all agree that Beef Stroganoff is funnier, so they give the victory to my dad over my uncle. This was literally one of the best days in my father's entire life. His heroes called him up to chat and make jokes and thank him for caring. It meant the world to him then, and it means as much to me now to know that they would do that. As a side note, a few years later, my dad went to the Museum of Television in New York and decided to watch some stuff from the archives. There they had some episodes of your show of shows that weren't available anywhere else. My dad sat down and watched them all. On the very last episode, they announced a special guest, Charlton Heston. My dad held his breath. The sketch begins just as my dad remembers. And then Sid Caesar tells Carl Reiner, "Go to this restaurant and ask for sauerbraten." So even your heroes get it wrong sometimes. But I love that my dad made the joke funnier. And thanks, Carl, for inspiring my dad to be a writer. And thanks for being so kind, generous, and warm. He tried to follow in your footsteps, all of those things, and I'm trying to follow in his. And here's a picture of Carl Reiner, his daughter Annie, and Mel Brooks 2 days ago for Mel's birthday. Very cool story about Carl Reiner. There's his dad getting the book signed. Very cool. Just a very nice story about Carl Reiner and a funny joke that was misheard by Matthew Rosenberg at Ashcan Press on Twitter. And now a message from Vice President Joe Biden.
Today we're facing a serious threat, and we have to meet it. We have to meet it as one country. But the president gives no direction, and he pits us against one another. We can't continue like this, half recovering and half getting worse. We can't continue, half wearing masks and half rejecting science. We can't continue, half with a plan and half just hoping for the best. You know, we won't defeat this virus with a piecemeal approach, lifting restrictions prematurely, increasing the volatility of the crisis, raising the likelihood of needing to reimpose restrictions. You know, until our science catches up to reality, until we have better treatment for those who become infected and ultimately are safe, proven, widely available vaccines, we have to continue to do all we can as the people and the government to keep our fellow Americans safe and healthy.
An impressive message from Vice President Joe Biden. Just a reminder of the true horror of the coronavirus. Here's a young woman who is suffering from it. She tells her story, how she went to what looks like a graduation party. She says she always wore masks when out or in groups, mostly stayed home, but the pictures below were before she got sick but recent. On 6/20, she'd be out in the sun more than usual. She had allergies and a small, very faint runny nose. The next day, she'd taken a Sudafed and the runny nose was gone. She thought she was fine. An hour or two or later after seeing him, she felt terrible and had gained a very sore throat. By Sunday night, the symptom list was growing and becoming worse. She figured she had COVID-19, but it was extremely worse than she had pictured. She woke up Monday with a bad sore throat, muscle aches all over, and very, very bad fatigue and chills. She got tested that day. The test takes about 3 to 8 days to come back, so she had quarantined herself for herself and her family's safety. The next day, Tuesday, she tried to take it easy in bed, but her symptoms were only getting worse. Tuesday, she lost her sense of smell completely. While getting breakfast, she noticed the milk was about to expire. She put it in a cup and smelled it to see if the milk smelled bad and could not smell anything. She didn't think much about it until taking whiffs of Tabasco, smelling absolutely nothing, but feeling her nose burning. So keep in mind, to the best of her knowledge, she'd went someone that she knows, knowing that they had COVID and affected someone else she was newly in contact with. She wore a mask around that person, but it doesn't sound like the other person wore a mask. Just a reminder of how horrible this disease can be, even for young people. So let's all stay inside and avoid the coronavirus. Shout out to Katie at KatieGrace132 on Twitter. Rand Paul urges Dr. Fauci to provide more optimism on coronavirus. Yes, Stone Kettle writes, 127,000 Americans have died, and we're setting daily new records for infections, Dr. Fauci said, optimistically. Yes. If you're looking for something to distract you, check out this folk medieval style bardcore cover of Nothing Else Matters. Bardcore has been trending on YouTube for a while. That's classical bard, classical modern songs, classical bard. Cool stuff on Twitter. Stone Kettle really going all out here with a full Night Court reference. You haven't seen a Night Court reference in years. Night Court was a sitcom, a great old TV show. You should check it out. Even though we had technical difficulties yesterday, we came roaring back with yet another episode of Good Morning Bitcoin. Check it out on the World Crypto Network. Stone Kettle writes, if only we had a president determined to save the lives of people of as determined to save the lives of people of color as he is to save the heritage of those who once enslaved them. Trump said on Twitter, this is a battle to save the heritage, history, and greatness of our country. Does he mean the Confederacy? It's unclear. Kevin McDonald writes, I honestly thought Carl Reiner would make it to 100. He was great on your show of shows. He was the best straight man ever in The 2,000-Year-Old Man. He created the Dick Van Dyke Show and directed the best Steve Martin movies. He fought Trump until the end. He was one of the best. DeSantis says Florida is not going back on reopening as coronavirus cases surge. Crazy. University of Alabama students who knew they had COVID-19 attended parties anyway. Breathtaking news from the University of Alabama, where apparently they're not teaching them very much at all. Steve Martin, shout out to Carl Reiner. Carl Reiner taught me many things about life, but he also taught me how to turn one slice of toast into two. And something about this reminds me that Carl Reiner lived through the Great Depression. And this seems like a very Great Depression thing to do. That once you've crisped the toast, you could actually cut one piece of bread in half and pretend it was two. A very Great Depression thing to do, or maybe something to remember for the future. I don't know. Warren Buffett doesn't need the Fed's help, but he's getting it anyway. Yes, Warren Buffett has a personal net wealth of $69 billion. 69. His company is worth $426 billion, and he has $43 billion in cash in the bank, and they're getting a Federal Reserve bond backstop. Enjoy your $1,200, peons. Don't spend it all in one place, peasants. It's going to be very disturbing. I will guarantee you that. Dr. Fauci predicting the United States may hit 100,000 new cases a day if the trajectory of the outbreak is not altered. Good thing we're not doing anything at all. No national mask wearing, no nothing. We're looking at hell, folks, says Helen Branswell. Leading Republicans, with the exception of Trump, now support mask wearing. Yes, in Republican circles, with the exception of the man who leads the party, the debate about masks is over. It's time to put one on. This is a pretty funny video from the internet. Maybe just a little palate cleanser here. Guy's playing guitar on the pier somewhere, and he's fully dressed as Batman.
Batman! Batman!
And he's got fire.
Oh, come on!
So there you go. A little humor from the internet to pick up your day. Batman gets destroyed by Spider-Man riding a unicycle with bagpipes that light on fire, and it looked like he sprayed some silly string on his face. So he really went to town on Batman. And I love the way that the Batman was singing, too. It was so great. He's like got the angry, gruff voice. He's just doing the one word, Batman. That was so good. All right, back to the news. It's been 48 minutes since the national security law was promulgated in Hong Kong. To sum it up very briefly, life imprisonment is there for the 4 offenses. National security agents and police can basically do whatever they feel necessary to subjects. Work of the National Security Committee and agency will be kept from the public and immune to judicial review. The Hong Kong government has no jurisdiction over National Security Agency staff discharging duties. Trial in Hong Kong can go without jury or go behind closed door if the Secretary for Justice certified a necessity to protect state secrets. Serious cases on 3 occasions can be passed to mainland's top protectorate and Supreme Court under National Security Agency or Hong Kong government request. Non-permanent residents in Hong Kong accused of violating the law can be expelled, regardless of conviction. Persons convicted can't run in elections or stay in public office. Judges with speech and acts jeopardizing national security can't be appointed to handle those cases. Foreign groups and media in Hong Kong will get enhanced management and services jointly from the National Security Agency, the MFA Commissioner Office, and the Hong Kong government. The only chance for the public to peep into the National Security Committee lies in budget application. Thinking the action itself is a crime now. Bad news for Hong Kong. Just a quick summary: closed trials, no jury, expansion of police power, and a possible life sentence. Complicated and serious cases will be under the jurisdiction of the Hong Kong National Security Bureau, which will send defendants to China for prosecution. It's July 1st. The law has been in effect for about a day. Get out of Hong Kong. Get out. The United States is suspending some trade benefits to Hong Kong. Hong Kong matters less to China than it once did, says Lisa Abramowitz. 12% of the country's exports went to or through the city last year versus 45% in 1992. U.S. interests are vulnerable. Its 2018 largest trade surplus with Hong Kong, and hundreds of U.S. companies have offices there. It's time to close. It's time to leave. And again, isn't it interesting that it's all about the money? When Hong Kong was producing 45% of China's exports, you certainly wouldn't mess with this two countries, one system. Now that they're down to 12%, it really doesn't matter anymore. Stimulus packages around the world. Get ready to cry. United Kingdom, 80% of workers' salaries. Denmark, 75% of workers' salaries. South Korea, 70% of workers' salaries. The Netherlands, greatest place in the world, 90% of workers' salaries. Canada, $2,000 a month. Australia, $1,000 a month. The United States, a one-time check for $1,200 that may take months to arrive. It's almost like we don't care about our people at all. It's almost like we just don't care. And get ready for the eviction crisis. You can check out a great show on John Oliver or Hassan Minhaj. They're both talking about evictions and how it's soon going to get much, much worse. Imagine if the United States had passed a law mandating 10 years to life in prison for protesting police brutality. That's what China's new law for Hong Kong basically does. Yep. Mitch McConnell warns the Democrats not to change the filibuster rule. Yes, it really is that funny. Breaking news from the Lincoln Project. Let's see if we can get this full screen. Here we go. This is a very important breaking news. Please stand by. Everyone ready?
This is CNN Breaking News.
The president does read.
The president does read.
Breaking news.
The president does read.
Oh, if you say it 3 times, it's true. But yes, the president does read. That's the qualifications. He can walk a ramp. He can drink water with one hand. And he reads. Not books, not briefings, but he's capable. He's capable of reading. A fantastic quote from Bill Gates describing Facebook. He said something along the lines of, "That's a crock of shit. This isn't a platform. A platform is when the economic value of everybody that uses it exceeds the value of the company that creates it. Then it's a platform." Great job, Bill Gates. As Sue Hall says on Twitter, Gates is king. And now, an advertisement from Act Blue and the Midas Touch.
This job is not about me. It's about you. For that's what the presidency is. The duty to care for all of us, Not just those who vote for us, but all of us. In some of our darkest moments of despair, we've made some of our greatest progress. We're the only nation in the world that goes through crisis and comes out better. When we stand together, finally as one America, we'll rise stronger than we were before. We'll move that arc closer to justice. This is the United States of America. There's never been anything we've been unable to do when we set our mind to do it, and we've done it together. Together.
That gives me that strange feeling I haven't felt in so long. I seem to remember it. I think it was called Hope. I think that gives me hope. Be pretty good. Of course, everyone knows how to play the game of Monopoly, but imagine if you played it in real life. In the game Monopoly, once enough properties are owned by a single player, renters can't afford to pay rents and are therefore forced into bankruptcy, and the game ends. For those of you who have played, you'll notice how systems work, i.e., once you have an early advantage, the game becomes easier because you have the rents to acquire more properties and more houses and hotels. A positive feedback loop is created, concentrating wealth. You also might notice that that the wealth in the game might work due to luck. Landing on the right squares early in the game gives you a massive advantage. Right place, right time. Conversely, missing out on acquiring those assets early creates a negative feedback loop, which also reinforces on itself. The poor become poorer until they become insolvent as they move around the board paying higher and higher rents. Fortunately, it is just a game. The game ends. Someone gets bragging rights, and they're all given a fresh chance to win when the game begins anew, and with everyone being equal. But what would happen if the same positive and negative feedback loops happened in life, with the winners acquiring ever more because they had access to the assets first, concentrating their wealth, and enjoying privileged access to the best education, medical, and other services? And let's say, for the sake of argument, let's imagine in this life game that there was a giant force, call it a central bank, that would not let asset prices fall, which only concentrated wealth faster and wouldn't allow a reset of the game where new players had a chance. How long would the losers of the game keep playing the game when they've realized that the game is rigged against them? What if they couldn't pay their rents, medical bills, education, with the game continuing to get worse? What if the game wouldn't end for them? What would they do? And more importantly, if you were them, what would you do? You might listen and elect leaders who tell you they will give you free money without asking where that money comes from, or rise up against the winners and burn the game to the ground, revolutions. Or play a new game where you had a chance, Bitcoin or gold. The societal consequences of changing the rules of the game to stop the natural clearing functions of markets and to lock new game players out is making the world ever more dangerous, and the consequences are very predictable. And the crazy thing is, the same thing central banks are fighting against, prices falling because of exponentially advancing technologies, might be the best game we've ever played. A very interesting post from Jeff Booth on Twitter, @JeffBooth. And of course, you guys all recall that the Monopoly game was originally called the Landlord's Game and was designed to teach this very lesson, that the landlord system was unfair. The game had many twists and turns and changes of ownership, with some people even just outright stealing the Landlord's Game to make the modern version of Monopoly. A very interesting story, well worth reading about. Scott Dworkin. Trump just publicly sided with the Russian government over the U.S. government, calling the bounty on U.S. troops a hoax. Then he attacked the American press. His boss, Putin, will be proud. Arthur Van Pelt says, talking about the Craig Wright BSV cult, he's noticing a little trend. The hardcore BSV members don't like it. They're in full damage control mode, exposing their irrational mindset and lies even more. Let's take a look into the mind of BSV. Daniel Krawitz. I used to think that BSV was a good idea, but now I have realized that acknowledging any kind of indebtedness to Craig Wright is so horrible that nobody will ever want to buy it, no matter how beneficial it is. Reina Nakamoto writes, truth is not an attack. Bitcoin's goal has been freedom, transparency, honesty. How do we believe Craig created Bitcoin if he's making bogus theses? That needs to be clarified. If he's duping universities, it's not a good sign at all, and everyone hand waves it away. Nick at YSOH writes, I've been giving Craig Wright a huge benefit of the doubt for anything done after the Gizmodo article because I believe there was a legitimate reason to act the way he does, e.g., generate plausible deniability. However, the above article shows that he's been lying long before the Gizmodo article. It sucks, because I was excited for the possibilities of BSV, but knowing it's headed by a habitual liar has made me reconsider my position. And Calvin Air says, correct, Craig is Satoshi, and BSV is Bitcoin, and all these attacks are only to stop you from knowing this, and debating them once the scammers launch their attack is itself a kind of secondary attack on the weak of mind. So, oh well, Calvin Air is sticking with Craig to the end. A new article says that the president is a danger to the United States and that hundreds who served under Republican President George W. Bush are set to endorse Vice President Biden. The White House says the president has been briefed on the alleged bounties to kill U.S. soldiers, and the White House is planning to brief the Gang of Eight on the issue today. But Trump is calling it a hoax. Trump says on Twitter, the Russia bounty story is just another made-up by fake news tale that is told only to damage me and the Republican Party. The secret source probably does not even exist, just like the story itself. If the discredited New York Times has a source, reveal it. Just another hoax. This really doesn't make any sense. If it was false, why would they have briefed the Republicans yesterday? Why would they be briefing the Democrats today? Why are they briefing the Gang of Eight? What are they briefing them on? These two ideas can't exist at the same time. Malcolm Nance, formerly with the CIA, says, I have never ever said that Donald Trump was a recruited agent of Moscow, even when he threw himself on grenades time and time again for Putin. I've certainly called him a witting asset. Now, I'm not so sure. Many people publicly doubting the president's loyalty to the United States. We've entered a new phase. Becky Whetstone, PhD, writes, her son was a Marine killed in Afghanistan. If she had learned that Russia put a bounty on his life and the United States didn't take serious, decisive action, then hell hath no fury like a mother scorned. Bless the families who face this reality. Black Lives Matter. This is New York City right now. 30 days in a row. 30 days in a row. The protests are not over. They're not about changing the voices of cartoon characters. They're not about Golden Girls episodes with mud masks. It's about police brutality and ending the police so that they'll stop the brutality. We need a better system, maybe something similar to the UK where the police don't have guns and they respond much more peaceably when they don't have guns. Guns like a hammer turns everything into a nail. Shout out to Adam Back. CZ from Binance asked a stupid question and they got a stupid answer. CZ says, "Your shilling time. Which coins and tokens should Binance list and why?" He says, "This tweet is an exception to the no need to shill us guideline." Oh, that's a bad exception to make. Adam Back reminds him that he should add Bitcoin SegWit support. It's hilarious. They don't have it already. They should add liquid Bitcoin, add Lightning, move BNB to a liquid CT asset, delist the rest, or peg it all to liquid assets. You must know from Binance stats the liquidity adjusted dominance index. So why waste focus? You did ask. Adam Back really showing CZ there the direction his company should head in if they want to continue to be successful. Tom Watson says, Joe Biden speaks slowly. He pauses to consider what he's about to say. He doubles back to clarify. He treats reporters with respect. He has a little Jimmy Stewart thing going on. I'm ridiculously cool with every bit of it. The president is the most informed person on planet Earth. Yes, it's even more stupid because she said planet Earth. Why not just say the galaxy? The president is the most informed human in the galaxy. In all 12 galaxies, in all 189 galaxies, in the Milky Way region, the president is the most informed. She's the best. More treason from Trump. He says, no corroborating evidence to back up reports. Department of Defense. Do people still not understand that this is a made-up fake news media hoax started to slander me and the Republican Party? I was never briefed because any info that they may have had did not rise to that level. Turns out it was in the piece of paper handed to him on February 27th. The February 27th President's Daily Briefing. Still waiting to get the title on that one, hoping that it's very similar to Bin Laden determined to strike within America. Yeah, that was a tough one to figure out. I could see how you'd be confused. And again, why are they briefing the Republicans, the Democrats, and now the Gang of Eight on a hoax? Doesn't make any sense. He's lying. It's pathetic. And it's deranged. I mean, there's no reason to lie about this. We know they're briefing them. Like, yes, this weekend you had the 3-day pass. It was Friday. You said, hey, we never heard about this. That lasted Saturday until Sunday when we knew that you'd been briefed. Now we even know the day you've been briefed. We know John Bolton briefed you in March. We know that there was an attack in April. So February, March, April, you did nothing. There was an attack. It's all documents. You can't lie about something where there's documents. The lawyers are just going to destroy you. Oh. What is that song by the Eagles? The lawyers dealt with small details because daddy had to lie. I'm going to find us a place where we can go and wash away the wind. Yes, there was intelligence reported on the allegations that the Russians were offering a bounty to the Taliban to kill Americans. Representative Mike McCall, Republican from Texas, the top Republican on the House Foreign Affairs Committee, confirms and disrupts Donald Trump's story that it's a lie or a hoax. Yes, a Republican from the House Foreign Affairs Committee says that there was indeed intelligence. It's not in doubt. Scott Dworkin writes, Republicans are using Kremlin talking points to attack the U.S. military. Traitors. They do seem to be traitors. Russian bounties further strain Trump's bond with veterans. Jonathan Lemire says, I don't think he cares about troops at all. And if he didn't know about Russia, it's because he didn't do his damn homework. And that's despicable. It seems they're having massive street protests in Hong Kong to protest the new national security law. I wish I could be more optimistic about this, but they're really in a tight spot. It's a great time to get out of Hong Kong if you can. You don't need all that stuff. You just need you, and you need to be safe somewhere else. Joshua Wong writes, End of Hong Kong, beginning of reign of terror. Beijing has just passed the sweeping national security law. It marks the end of Hong Kong that the world knew before. Goodbye, Hong Kong. Volume adjusted Bitcoin dominance sits at 90%. The rest of crypto assets would only amount to 10%. Could it be that this figure is rarely brought up to avoid discouraging altcoin traders? Liquidity of altcoins is not even comparable to Bitcoin and challenged by stablecoin Tether. Scott Dworkin writes, I wonder what the Gold Star families of the soldiers killed by the Russians would have to say about Trump calling their deaths fake news and a hoax. Trump is a traitor and an abomination. At least 5 news outlets have confirmed the story, including Fox News, The Wall Street Journal, CNN, the BBC, and The Washington Post, as well as the fact that they briefed NATO, that they briefed our British allies, that they're briefing the Republicans, that they're briefing the Democrats, that they're briefing the Gang of Eight. What are they briefing them on? If it was a hoax, they could come public with that. And we've got another Karen here. Susan in Montclair, New Jersey, spends 30 minutes harassing 2 black lawyers because she wants to know if they have a permit for their new stone patio. Then she lies and says the husband attacked her, but the rest of the white women on the street congregate to drag her unwashed ass. Let's watch a little bit of this confrontation on the street with yet another one of these Karens using the power of their phone and the ability to call the murderous police as a weapon against black people.
Go home. Okay? We expect that of Amy's. We expect that. We expect that. Of course you are. That's what you know. He did not.
Yes, he did.
No, he.
You're his spouse. Yeah, could I please get a 44 Norman Road? I need a call.
Wow. This is what she's been waiting 2 years to do this. She's been waiting 2 years to do this. She's been waiting 2 years to do this to us. She's been waiting 2 years for this.
Are you crazy?
This is Susan that lives on Marion Road in Montclair.
In this climate right now, you're especially not supporting members of our community here who pushed me 10 feet.
No, I watched it.
They're saying he didn't.
I didn't put my hands on you, woman.
Are you kidding me? Just because I came over your lawn, I should have brought my son.
Now, are you threatening us with your son?
She's not admitting to it.
Are you threatening us with your son?
Are you going to say you didn't put your hands on me?
Ain't nobody put their hands on you.
No one put your hands on. He put his hands on me. I asked you to please leave.
No, because you're attorneys, you know what to do.
Exactly. So please walk away from our property. Go away. Go.
Okay, just let her, so our kids don't have to see the police, please. Please just go inside with them.
But really, there are other witnesses here, and they're not the only lawyers around right now, and I believe these witnesses. He was angry. She was pushing him back. No, she was never.
Sorry, guys.
Don't without a mask.
Mm.
Oh my God. Don't come on without a mask.
Go get a mask.
Could you please stop recording?
No, no. This is for the people, so they can see. Even in Montclair, what we are living with, even in Montclair for 2 years, Susan from Marion Road has been harassing us for 2 years.
God, I have not. Prove that, please. You're an attorney. You know you have to prove that in court. Just because you said it doesn't mean it's true. Oh, right. And just because you say it doesn't mean you did it. Oh my God. It's crazy, guys. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy that you didn't even see what happened.
I did. I saw it. And I saw them.
Really interesting video. Impressive to see the neighbors speaking out. I think this is a major change of what would have happened just a year ago if the same thing had happened. I could imagine straight silence from the neighbors, them walking away because they're embarrassed about the entire scene and the entire situation. But not anymore. Now they stand up for their black neighbors and attempt to protect them from Susan in Montclair. A few hours later, after the word spread on the incident via Facebook and local groups, this was Susan Street. It's almost like they've mobilized the internet in real life. Good morning, everybody. Apparently, it's High Treason Against the United States Day on Twitter. I took pictures for history. Latest report, White House Trump allies and conservative leaders are preparing for a possible Clarence Thomas retirement. If Thomas goes, you've got a lot of people around this process ready to support Thapar, never heard of him, and McConnell, ready to move his favorite through. Remember previously, just a few years ago, Mitch McConnell blocked President Obama's appointment to the Supreme Court, Justice Garland, from even getting a hearing. We were never even allowed to hear Justice Garland speak. Obama's failure to appoint Garland during the recess has led to this nightmare where the conservatives lead on the court. If Thomas chose to resign during the Trump presidency, there's obviously not enough time to appoint a successor. Certainly under Mitch McConnell's previous rules, that would be a precedent. But as we know, Mitch McConnell has no soul and is more than willing to push him through in this case, whereas with Obama and Garland, he wouldn't even give them a hearing. Corruption. Thy name is McConnell. The president has posted 17 tweets this morning, and not a single one of them even alludes to the pandemic that has now killed 129,000 Americans and counting. Former national security official tells Fox News President Trump gets briefed on intel all the time, even when there's disagreement and no consensus. They give him the report and add a note explaining the disagreement. As someone said yesterday on the news shows, if you didn't give the president information where there was disagreement and no consensus, you wouldn't be giving him intel. You'd be giving him facts. And the whole point of intel is that you get it before it becomes a fact. So you have to use your brain to think about it, whether it's true or not. You have to examine the sources, the methods, the details. You have to actually read the president's daily brief. Can't just glance at it. Justice Department is reviewing the Elijah Maclean case in Aurora, Colorado to see if a civil rights probe is warranted. Elijah Maclean was walking down the street in Aurora, Colorado. He just went to the store. He purchased items there. He had a plastic grocery bag showing that he had purchased the items. He was wearing a ski mask because he was a thin guy and he was cold. The police attacked him. The police messed with him. They claimed there was a scuffle. Then the paramedics gave him a ridiculously high dose of ketamine, and he was brain dead 3 days later. He was walking down the street in Aurora, Colorado. None of the police or paramedics were punished or received any negative action from his death. As Stone Kettle writes, police killed an American citizen for being black, living his life, walking down a public sidewalk, literally doing absolutely nothing wrong in any fashion whatsoever. And we're not sure if there's a problem with civil rights? Like there's a question, right? There's no question at all. Trump says, I didn't know, I wasn't briefed, I take no responsibility at all. Press secretary says, The president is the most informed person on planet Earth. So which is it? He didn't read the briefing, he wasn't briefed, he didn't know, or he's the most informed person on planet Earth. They can't both be true. A rare bit of positive news? Maybe. Breaking news, COVID-19 vaccine from Pfizer and BioNTech shows positive results. It's not clear whether the antibody levels produced will lead to immunity to the virus. The companies now need to conduct large-scale tests of the vaccine. Many non-Lebanese friends are trying to understand what's happening in Lebanon and what is changing. Mohammed at Monajem on Twitter writes, here's a comparison between July 2019 and July 2020. The situation is only getting worse. And you can see on the left, he's included a $100 bill and looks to be about $150,000 in local Lebanese currency. In the next picture, the $100 is now worth $900,000. So it's gone from around $150,000 for a $100 bill to $900,000 for a $100 bill. Almost a ninefold increase in Lebanon's inflation and a decrease in the value of their money.
There is an infinite amount of cash at the Federal Reserve.
Yes, that could be one of the possibilities if we truly had an infinite amount of cash. Here's a video out of Hong Kong, which is a place that you should leave. Here's a journalist taking pictures. He's hit directly in the head by the water cannon. It's an incredible force of water to go directly at someone's head. You can see right here, he was no threat to this police truck thing. The water, he's taking pictures of the people right there at the shop, and it hits him direct in the head. Just bam, knocks him to the ground. They used to use water hoses like this in the 1960s in the United States during the civil rights protests last time, and they stopped, and they apparently haven't stopped in Hong Kong. They've even mobilized it and mounted it on top of a car. So there's a journalist in Hong Kong getting totally destroyed by the water cannon. Get out of Hong Kong. It's not safe anymore. The Senate has stripped a provision from an intelligence bill requiring campaigns to report foreign election help. Hillary Clinton says, with this move, Republican senators have stopped being merely enablers when Trump seeks foreign help to win elections. They've become accomplices. It's getting worse for the Republicans. Joshua Wong, Hong Kong, writes, for the first time in Hong Kong's history, Hong Kongers are warned that flags, banners, slogans, and other behaviors during demonstrations or protests may be arrested on charges of secession, subversion of state power, under the national security law, which was once only found in China. Starting to have some historical echoes around here. I was reminded of when Hitler rolled into the Sudetenland, and that Churchill, or not Churchill, but the Chamberlain before him said, "Oh, it's fine, it's just this Sudetenland. They used to have that anyway." Then he rolled into Poland, and they were like, it's just Poland, that's fine. And then pretty soon he was rolling into Belgium, and they were like, I don't know about Belgium. And what about France? So yes, it happens slowly. First it's happening to other people, then it's happening to you. White House National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien says again that President Trump was not previously briefed on the Russian bounties report. He says it was the decision of a senior career CIA official because the information was uncorroborated. Says the president has now been fully briefed on the matter. As Stone Kettle writes, so Trump just now said that the report is totally fabricated by fake news. to discredit both him and the GOP. Meanwhile, Trump's national security advisor says the report is real and came from national intelligence, but we didn't brief Trump because reasons. Still seeing two sides to this story. A horrible story out of India. A reminder, if you're about to have a wedding, maybe you shouldn't. The coronavirus strikes a Bihar wedding. The bridegroom dies, and 100 people are infected. They said the bridegroom already had a temperature, a fever. When they attended the wedding, they still kept it going. They couldn't cancel everything. They had to do it for their family, all these things. More than 100 people were infected at a wedding in India. You have to stand up against these constraints. The old idea, you want to respect your father and mother. You don't want to cancel the wedding. You don't want to lose all that money for the deposits. You don't want to embarrass your family. And, you want to get married. You got a cool wife. She's cool. Let's get married, right? You can't do that anymore. You can't invite your family to come from all over the place to a wedding, not during the virus. Sure, maybe you could elope. You could have a small ceremony somewhere, socially distanced from the justice of the peace or whatever the Indian equivalent would be. But no, giant weddings, they're out. You just can't do this. It's just not safe. Nevada and 7 other states were added to New York's list of states meeting the metrics for community spread of COVID-19. New York is now requiring quarantine for 14 days if you want to visit the state from Nevada or 7 other states. This is a good idea for New York, but a horrible and embarrassing thing for the rest of the states. And a good idea probably just to stay home if you're thinking about traveling and you leave New York. Maybe you go on vacation to Las Vegas, then you want to go back to New York. You have to wait 14 days, probably in some little pod hotel somewhere, eating whatever they bring you, and never ever going outside. Sounds fun. Good news from Las Vegas, a rare piece of good news today. And again, this is a long shot still. High-speed train company receives permission to use I-15 right away in California. They're hoping to take the train down the middle of the existing highway, I-15, all the way from Los Angeles to Las Vegas on a high-speed train. Yes, maybe someday. Don't hold your breath. Hong Kong police have made their first arrest in less than 24 hours after China imposed a sweeping new national security law in the territory. Get the hell out of Hong Kong. What's wrong with you? Why are you still there? And it sounds like Texas is on their own. Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick says he will no longer listen to Dr. Anthony Fauci. He says, I don't need his advice anymore. Texas is going its own way. Good luck with that. Shout out to Jim Cramer at Mad Money. There's a quote, Taiwan with 24 million population and 7 COVID deaths. United States with 330 million population and 130,000 deaths. Taiwan has a 97% adherence with masks. The remaining 3% are primarily Europeans and Americans. Similar findings in Hong Kong and Japan. Kramer retweets with only one word. Masks. It's not a Republican thing. It's not a Democrat thing. Kramer's very Republican. He's a big money guy. Masks. He just wants this thing to end so we can get back to gambling on the stock market and having fun. As the virus roars back, so do a new round of layoffs. A resurgence of COVID cases across the U.S. South and West is endangering hopes for an economic rebound. At stake are the jobs of millions of people who had hoped their layoffs would be short-lived. Yes, it's time for another stimulus. Good thing that the House of Representatives has passed the Heroes Bill. Bad thing that Senator Mitch McConnell, the worst person in the world, is blocking it along with 400 other bills blocked this year on everything from voter rights to climate change. Mitch McConnell, the worst person in the world. Coronavirus updates. German economy shows signs of recovery. Ryanair sees very strong bookings. Yes, if only the United States has acted quicker, worn masks, quarantined faster, maybe we could be enjoying what Germany's experiencing. If you beat the virus, the economy comes back. If you don't beat the virus, the economy doesn't come back. It's just that simple. And it's been this way the whole time. Never changed. Meanwhile, in England, dozens of English towns and cities could soon be forced back into strict coronavirus lockdown. If you don't take the virus seriously, you don't get to reopen. Wear masks, England. Where's your mask, Boris? I think you'd look better. Wear a mask. Major League Baseball is canceling the 2020 minor league season. This is the right thing to do. Other leagues should listen and follow suit. Or we'll be retweeting articles about the number of infected players in just a few months. The only problem with this is that they're probably not paying the minor league players. This is a huge problem for minor league baseball talent. They have no way of earning money. They're probably waitering now, but even that is probably closing down. If only we had more stimulus, they could take care of the minor league baseball players too. Who will think of the minor leaguers? And South Dakota governor is planning a large Trump event at Mount Rushmore on July 3rd, and he says they will not be social distancing. Bring out your dad. Bring out your dad. Bring out your dad. I'm not dead. Yes, you are. And there's a startling new report that Bobbert is the third QAnon supporter to take first place in a GOP primary vote this cycle. Alexander Kaufman describes this as one of the scariest trends in United States politics, and he writes about climate change for a living. For those of us who have read the book Rat Fucked by David Daley, we already know what's happening. Extreme partisan gerrymandering destroys moderates and only allows far right-wing or far left-wing challenges. Basically, by redesigning the districts into situations where Democrats win one district by 90% and Republicans win every other district by 60 to 40 or 55 to 45, something like that, basically creates red districts and blue districts. In the red district, your only problem is a challenge from the right. In the blue district, your only problem is a challenge from the left. It doesn't encourage moderates. It encourages more right and more left, which then leads to a broken Congress where the far left and the far right can't agree on anything, and Congress is about compromise. The gerrymander of 2010 has broken our democratic system. It's a structural problem. You can learn more if you want. Read the book. It's called Rat Fucked. I wish it had a better title, but that's what it's called. Elijah Maclean's father calls for everyone involved in his death to be held accountable. Can't imagine what it's like for this man to lose Elijah Maclean, such a non-violent and peaceful individual, taken for no reason. Trump wonders, where is Roger Ailes, the former chief of Fox News? He's been dead for 3 years. Seems like Trump's forgotten. Who's the demented one again? Who's the one with the mental problems? I heard that they were saying Biden has mental problems, but Trump doesn't know that Roger Ailes has been dead for 3 years. That's a little odd. And it's still Bobby Bonilla Day. Shout out to Bobby Bonilla, uncle of Barry Bonds, formerly with the Pirates, signed a deal with the Mets, hardly performed at all, and yet, because of the way the deal was written, he gets $1.19 million every July 1st and every July 1st until 2035. What a great deal for Bobby Bonilla. What a bad deal for the Mets. And here's the truth for the United States. Universal masking with targeted closures will help, but the outbreak is huge now. Maybe we get really lucky with this virus. T-cell cross-reactivity, antiviral combo? I hope so, but I can't count on it. Otherwise, it's another year of where we are. Senator Chris Murphy, Connecticut, writes, "What's so unforgivable is that there's now no mystery as how to get COVID under control. In Connecticut, we kept everything closed until transmissions fell. We created an apolitical mask-wearing culture. We tested aggressively. 2 months ago, a hotspot. Today, less than 100 hospitalized. We can beat this thing. The code is out there in the wild. All you have to do is wear a mask. That's all you have to do." Texas reported 6,975 more confirmed cases of COVID-19, a new single-day record. The previous 7 days, around 4,000, 5,000, 5,000, 5,000, 5,000, 5,000, 5,000, for a total of 45,000 cases in the last 7 days in Texas. The virus didn't stop this Washington socialite from throwing a backyard soiree. Then the tests came back positive. Yes, it's not a good time to have a party, even if you're filthy rich. Yes, you're infecting all your friends. You can't trust anything. It could be the waiters, the waitresses. It could be one of your friends. It's almost as if we can't hang out with humans anymore. We should just wear masks. Stay home. 3 NATO officials say they were briefed by the Americans on a potential threat to their troops in Afghanistan from operatives potentially linked to the Russian intelligence services. So everybody was briefed but Trump? Trump's story is falling apart. In Hong Kong, they've made the first arrest under a new national security law for carrying an independence flag at the protest. He was arrested for carrying a flag. Just get out of Hong Kong. Breaking news, the House has introduced a resolution to impeach Attorney General Barr. It's just starting, but hopefully it goes somewhere. Just in case you didn't know, Mitch McConnell is the most destructive force in the modern history of the United States Senate. Anyone who tells you this seat isn't worth fighting for, that it isn't worth it to fight tooth and nail to defeat McConnell, hasn't been paying attention. We need to support McGrath now. And we did it. We made it to the top of the news. We survived. Hooray. Shout out to everyone who made it through. Good job. Give yourself a pat on the back. Remind yourself to give this show a thumbs up and a share. And if you haven't, please subscribe down below. We try to do these shows every day. Check out worldcryptonetwork.store. We've got World Crypto Network, the mug. Treasures Don't Float, the t-shirt. Bitcoin Not Bombs, the 2020 Happening Special Edition. And World Crypto Network, the shirt. Check them out at worldcryptonetwork.store. Also check out the World Crypto Network audio podcast on Spreaker, iTunes, and many other places where audio podcasts are heard. You can listen to yesterday's show, Good Morning Bitcoin and the News, reprise. You could also check out an interview with Tone Vase, Peter Todd, and Dan Eve from Transylvania Conference 2019. Yes, we're still releasing brand new, never-before-seen videos from 2019. Checking in with the price of Bitcoin, the price of Bitcoin is up 1.17% in the last 24 hours, with a last of 9,283, a high of 9,298, and a low of 9,109. That's $1 for 10,775 Satoshis. Volume is still a little low for a weekday, with only 1,897 Bitcoins changing hands. The market continues to lean long, with 82% heading that direction. Bitcoin dominance was at 65%. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, bye-bye.